Hello, hello, and welcome to the Humble Baptist Podcast. I am your host, Troy, and I am the Humble Baptist. Uh, you know what? I need to go over why my podcast is named the Humble Baptist. That's actually on the check off list tonight. So I am called the Humble Baptist because my church has a men's Bible study group chat, and I can't remember who it was, but they were just talking about uh sent nice little devotional talk about being humble. And so I just sent out, I'm like, oh well, I am the most humble person, right? Joke, being facetious. And then my church saw fit to go, you know what, we got to do something about this guy bragging about his humility. And so they printed me a certificate of humility and presented it to me in Sunday school. And so it just kind of became an inside joke. And so it took on its own thing. And so now I am the air quotes humble Baptist. Anyways, thanks for stopping by the Humble Baptist podcast tonight. I do want to let you know that I am a lay member of Reformata Baptist Church, and I do this under the authority of the elders there at Reformata, and seek to do it order and to a really to do it excellently. Ten, Tonight we're going to be reviewing some of the stuff that we've talked about in the last two messages, because we're really going to be wrapping up the the manuscript section, right? The handwritten copies of our Greek New Testament. We're going to be wrapping up that section of history to where we'll be moving on, and really there's going to be a big jump in the dates that we're looking at. And I'm excited about it. I'm trying to get something worked out for a very special video. But tonight, if you jump on and you're watching, be sure to if you have any questions, ask them. This would be the time. This is going to be our review time, and we're going to try and do this because the first two messages, I really crammed a lot of information in a very short period of time. You could do entire series on manuscripts. You could talk about it indefinitely from now until, I think the old country saying is when the cows come home. And so we're going to be doing review. If you're watching live, ask questions in the comments. If you're not watching live and you're watching this later, ask comments. I'll get to them on the next video. And so we're going to be looking at some stuff. Whenever we first started, we started with John 1:1. And let me go ahead and change my layout here. By the way, we do have a new background. Let me know what y'all think about that. Made it a little more pretty. But yeah, we started with John 1:1, right? A verse that most people already have memorized. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All right. And uh, same thing, ESV and KJV. It's nice because we're reading the same thing twice. And really, we looked at John 1:1, and then we read it in Greek, right? And we looked at it, and honestly, as many times as what this was quoted, some of y'all probably could have already memorized it. NRK hin halagos kai halagos in pros ton theon kai theos in halagos. And the reason we did that was because then we went back through, right? We went back through all kinds of manuscripts. ranging anywhere from the early 2nd century, right, all the way up to, actually, I wanna say that we were middle of, 3rd century. We were about 250, um, specifically for John 1:1, P75, all the way throughout church history, and we saw that it did not change one bit. And I wanted that to be where we started, because that is a verse that's often looked at for the deity of Christ. That's one of the main verses we would go to for apologetics. And so we saw that it stayed the same, that there was actually no variation in any of the manuscripts that we could find out of the 5,600 to 6,000 manuscripts. And, we were just talking about, how comforting this is. And then immediately after we did that one, all right, the next episode, and if you haven't seen these, go back, watch them. And to be honest, this video will kind of help you uh, understand them a little more. But in the second video, what we had was an introduction to variants, right? And so, variants and text types, and we tried to distinguish in between transmission and translation. And I do want to give you a little simpler definition, and of course we'll be looking at that. But uh, we had the introduction of variants. What do we think about them? What's going on? Uh, and trying to understand it. And so we had a few specific examples, and we looked at, do these variants change any bit of doctrine? And really the conclusion is no. We need to define text types real quick. So let me pull up something else. Hmm, Let me do my share screen here. Mhm. All right. So we got our share screen going on here. All right. We've got a map of Bible area, right? We've got Southern Europe, we've got the Middle East, we've got the northern part of Africa. And so, really, I'll also pull it up back here for you. And so, really, what we have is we've got two big families of manuscripts that a lot of people talk a lot about all the time. And there used to be more classifications, but for simplicity's sakes, we're going to go with the two. These are the two that you're going to hear about. Whenever you're talking about manuscripts, you're going to hear these two names. And that would be the Alexandrian, right here in Alexandria, Egypt, and the Byzantine, which is going to be all of this area right here, the Byzantine Empire, right? And so, we started walking through, what do we think about these manuscripts? What do we know about them? Why is there a difference? And we walked through the history of, the Bible was written. We see 1st century manuscripts are spreading all over the known world, right? So you have an uncontrolled transmission, right? Transmission is just the act of copying and copying and copying and copying, right? It's this manuscript made this manuscript, and this manuscript made this manuscript, right? And so that's transmission, going from one to another to another to another. And so that's what transmission is, right? Which is different from translation. Translation just means you're putting it into a different language. Most of the time, when people are arguing about English translations, they're actually arguing about transmission. And that would be what we're talking about right now, right? So we see coming down out of Jerusalem or from wherever Paul was at, whether he was in prison or whether he was, wherever he was writing from, you see the letter coming out and building transmission types, right? So if somebody sends a copy down here and it has a variant in it, all the ones that are copied from that manuscript are going to have that variant because they're copying it. And so we really saw two different Alexandrian, Byzantine. And go ahead and get that one off because now I'm done pointing. So what we learned about these manuscripts is that the Alexandrian tends to be, they are the oldest that we have, right? They're very, 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 very old, right? We even have P52 stretching possibly into the first century or very, very early second, right? So we're talking about some people date it into the 90s, and most people date it from about 100 to 175-ish. And so very, very, very early. Yeah, I think this is a 1900-year-old smashed plant that someone wrote on, right? And we still have it. It's a blessing. But then you have what's called the majority, right? Now this Byzantine that's right in here. Can you all see my mouse right there? All right. So the majority of the manuscripts that we do have come from this area, right? And that's that Byzantine text that I was talking about, right? Now, it's also called the majority text, or you'll hear it referred to as the Antiochian text. Here's Antioch right here, Antioch of Syria. And so you have a big geographical area and you have a lot of manuscripts. We could have 5,400, something like that. I think there's less than 200 Alexandrian manuscripts. But what we do see is that they tend to be a lot later. Most of our manuscripts are from the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s. And that's just because that's, this area. If you want something to last a long time, you take it to Egypt and bury it in the sand. There's like no water down there, right? It's desert. And it's really good at preserving really old pieces of paper. Air quotes paper. Papyrus is more accurate. And so the reason we're stressing these two different manuscript lines, right? These text types, they're called the Byzantine text type over here, or the Alexandrian text type right down here, is because we're gonna need that to understand future translations into English that we're going to be going into. And so you'll hear some of this language being used. And so, we just talked about that real quick. We talked about the types of variants. That most variants are what's called a movable new. And what that is it's pretty much like if I say a apple or I have an apple, that I'm meaning the same thing in each one. And then so you have ones that are actually viable, right? And then you have ones that are also meaning, right? And so the ones that we do have, if you want to see what type of manuscripts we have, most likely they're written in the bottom of your Bible in like a size 4 font, like really small, right? You'll have the Bible text, and then down at the very bottom, it'll have if there's a variant there'll be a manuscript reading, or it'll say other manuscripts read this. And so, we come down to just talking about that, understanding it, and knowing like, look, this is just part of humans copying and copying and copying over and over and over and over and over again. I did let you know that I wasn't going to let you know my stance. I still stand by that. Y'all will not know my stance. Uh, because it's not important for what we're getting into. Um, and so, yeah, we really went over that, and then we talked a little bit about translation. Let me figure out how I'm going to. Oh, there it is. Okay. And so, actually, we'll stay with that screen. So, translation also will show us transmission. And so we talked about some of the earlier translations that we have, whether they be Coptic or whether they be Syriac from up here, right? Coptic is a language in Africa, and so it does follow an Alexandrian reading. Syriac would follow the Byzantine reading. The Latin would follow the Byzantine reading. And so this is kind of something that does let you know, even in a different translation, what variant there is, right? So we can tell in English if someone is quoting from an Alexandrian manuscript or a Byzantine manuscript based on what variant they used, or if they're quoting a different variant. And yeah, so we talked broad stroke about that, right? That we have these translations very early on, very early. We have some of our oldest are actually Coptic down in here, right? Once again, Egypt is a really good place to get manuscripts to last a very, very, very long time. And then, I'm sorry, my brain is burnt out this week. Been a long week. Been a long week. By the way, if you're part of my church family, I am no longer 50% pink. If you had I guess the nightmare of seeing me on Sunday. Um, but yeah, so let me remove that. All right. And you know what? I think we're going to move straight into some other translations that we didn't necessarily talk about. And so, because I still am trying to work out a special video. I'm gonna work hard on it. Hopefully, I can get some time off, get the right permission, and I'm gonna record something. Hopefully, I can play it next week. That's my goal. But so we'll start with the Latin. So early on, right? There's an old Latin, and then there's a quote newer Latin. The newer Latin we would most likely refer to as the Latin Vulgate. Now, where this kind of comes important into the next the next lesson that we have, next week's lesson, this is going to be kind of where we're picking up. So I just want to do a little quick review. And so from about 400 AD, right, we see Jerome creating the Latin Vulgate. And so this guy named Jerome goes and he translates quite a bit of the Bible into the Latin Vulgate. A lot of what he did was actually in Hebrew. He didn't do all of it. Some of it is his work, and some of it is not his, right? But he didn't do the entirety of it. But he went, and at that time, the Old Testament, a lot of people were using Greek because that's what they read. That's what they knew, right? The whole world. Let me just add this. The whole world at that point in time spoke Greek. But you do see Latin starting to grow, right? And so they wanted Latin, obviously the Bible in their own translation, just like us. And so he creates the Latin Vulgate. Now, the Latin Vulgate goes out. He was actually hired to do it. And the Latin Vulgate becomes the standard in the West, right? Now west, I mean, oh man, I gotta quit getting rid of this map here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Y'all want the map. I know you want the map. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the west, right? Rome. Uh Rome, Greece, even Northern Europe, Western Europe, right? They're going to start using the Vulgate. And then you'll see the eastern side, Byzantine. You see right here where it says Byzantium, right there, right? From there, all of this, they're still going to be using Greek, right? Now this goes on for over a millennium, right? The Latin Vulgate becomes the standard in the West, and the Greek stays the standard in the East. And so you have the what does become the Roman Catholics, right, and the Eastern Orthodox. And really they split 1054 AD. Just a fun fact for you. They actually split, and you have the Eastern Orthodox staying with the Greek, and you have the Roman Catholics going with the Latin. And what this is going to mean is whenever, see, I don't want to get a hold of myself. I want to keep that. I want to keep that information. Yeah. So basically, that is where I don't think I want to go any further here tonight. All right. I don't think we have any live viewers. But in case somebody's watching through Facebook or something like that, you can comment and I would ask. But I think we're going to just do a shorter show this week. We're going to do a shorter show this week, and we're going to pick up where I just left off. So we're going to pick up after the split in between the Eastern Orthodox on this side, the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholics, and we're going to pick up on where the Greek starts making its way back into Europe, and we're going to talk about an invention that changed the entire game. And really, where that's going to put us is that's going to put us in the 15th century. That's going to put us in 1455. If you want to do research and figure out what very important thing happened in 1455, then yeah, you can research that and you can be all excited about it for next week. But if you end up watching this, let me know if you have any questions, and you can either put them on the YouTube or you can send them to the Facebook. Go follow the Facebook page. Do it. Just do it. I update when I'm going to be posting. I was a little late to it this week, but we're going to improve on this. So far, we've been doing these every Thursday at 8:15. If something does change, I will let you know, but I'm thinking that's a very safe time to do it. And we'll come back. Hopefully, I can get a special video. If not, we'll just move on anyways. And yeah, I think that's about it. And we are done with handwritten manuscripts. And so we will be moving on. We will be moving on. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, approve, rebuke, admonish, reprove, all those good things. And I will see you next week. And I will play the outro.